Hello and welcome back to the channel. Let's get started. This episode begins on day 21 with me working on my wall. I'm really wanting to get this wall built since it will provide me with some peace of mind while spending time in my base. As seen here, I use a bar of soap when washing myself to reduce the time it takes to complete. I then harvest some cabbages from the garden, which gives me my second skill level in farming. I have a bite to eat and then I read Farming Volume 2. After that I take a cube van for a drive down a nearby dirt road and loot some houses. While looting I find some fertilizer for the garden, so when I get back home I feed it to my crops. After doing some cooking I admire my stats for a moment. Then I grab the propane torch and a welding mask and disassemble some chairs in order to work on my metalworking skill. I use the cube van to continue hauling wood needed for my wall project. Then I finish off the day organizing the base as well as doing some gardening. That night I read all of Carpentry 4. Then continue on the wall the next day. I go ahead and build the double door, then work the rest of the day and into that night finishing off the wall. The next morning I collect even more wood, then build a staircase at the back of my garage. After laying down some floors to walk on, I build a rain catch above where I believe a sink to be. I then get bored with all the building and decide to take the cube van to the gated community. I don't find much though, so I go back home, put away my loot, and go fishing first thing the next morning. The morning after that, I decide to take a drive to Muldrow, a neighboring town. When I get there, I loot the gas station and a diner next to it. Then I continue up the street to the VHS store. An alarm sounds when I go inside of it, so I spend the next few minutes killing more zombies. I eventually do end up making my way into the VHS store and loot all the tapes in there before making the trip back home. At home I build a little bookshelf beside the television to store the VHS tapes in. I spend the rest of the night watching videos and reading. I also spend some time admiring my stats. Then I go back out looting some houses until it gets too dark. I go back out the next day and find a machete. But I set off another alarm at the next house. I'm not far from my base, so I go there to see if the alarm attracted zombies to it. As soon as I get back, I see that it did. So I clear them all out before unloading my loot. The next morning I replace the garage door. This will make letting my guard down while I'm in my base far less risky. I take the blue car for a drive to the fishing pond but catch nothing. I find some fertilizer at this house. Then again set off an alarm at the next house I stop at, so I head home and fertilize the hell out of my garden. I spend the next day doing odd jobs around the base. Very early the next morning I leave for Muldrow once again. This time I'm going there to loot the police station. After looting the police station, I loot some alcohol from a bar called the Rusty Rifle. When I get back, I find that a lot of zombies have got past my wall. I eventually take care of them all, get the ambulance backed into the garage, and begin emptying my haul of guns and alcohol. I'm still gonna need a few more hauls like this one to get me through the winter. That night I go outside to check on my wall and hear a knocking at the door. It ends up being a pile of zombies. I kill all the zombies around my wall, then I repair the holes in the wall that were made. After that, I go work on my electrical skill for a while by dismantling some of the electronics that I've gathered. This gets me to level 3. Then I notice my wall has been busted again, so I decide to hop in the cube van and lead them away from my base. I then decide to add a backup wall at the base of this staircase just to be extra safe. Then I begin building a garden shed outside beside my garden. I spend the night organizing my base and reading Farming Volume 3. The next day I go fishing but run out of fishing line before I catch anything. I'm continually doing exercises to work on my strength and fitness skills. I take a break from exercising to trade out this blue car for this black SUV. Then I finish off the night with more exercising. The next day, I hook up the trailer to my SUV and go for a drive to Muldrow. While there, I loot a warehouse and a trailer park. Then I head back home and spend a full day unloading the trailer, gardening, and exercising. Early the next morning I begin collecting wood for the garden shed project. Then I work on it for the rest of the day and all that night. The next afternoon I build a staircase to access the roof. I just build a floor for my roof because I don't know any other way of doing it. I've decided to work on my firearm skill, so I grab a shotgun, some shells, and leave early the next morning to go up Main Street. Once I get up Main Street a ways, I walk around yelling to get a large group of zombies to follow me. And I begin firing shots into the crowd. This is a very effective way to level since damage dealt determines how much XP you get. That night I built a third bookcase to hold my massive collection of books. A couple days later I decide to travel to March Ridge. I begin by looting the bar for some alcohol. Then I head to the VHS store. I loot all the tapes there. Between these and all the reading material I have, I shouldn't have any boredom problems if I survive to the winter. They also give you that free XP, so as soon as I get back home, I watch a few. My stats are really starting to look nice now. Then I harvest some tomato plants, which gets me to level 6 in farming. That means it's time to read Farming Volume 4. I go collect a pile of thread and ripped sheets from zombies. I finally get around to setting up some traps. I'm hoping these become my main source of food. After that I go to the gated community and finish looting that area. Early the next morning I go fishing. I catch a few fish and even manage to pull out a pair of shoes. The tailoring skill takes a long time to level and it's super boring to work on. But I would love to be wearing some extra padding to prevent bites getting through my clothing. I get a couple of windows put on my gardening shed. I also add a chair in there for resting. I check my traps and find a couple of rabbits, so I go home and cook myself a rabbit roast. Well, it looks like Murphy Wild survived another episode. Join me next week to see if his luck continues. See you next time.